Hey there, powerful soul. Welcome back to another conversation about this time, dare to be an authentic human, lover and leader in an artificial world. I was journaling this morning and having this beautiful contemplation, self reflection time about my original nature and how we live in a time right now where so many are hungry and yearning for authenticity in life, in love, in leadership, and how there is also this pressure to perform. There's this pressure to pretend. There's this pressure to show up with a pretense. And there's so many reasons why I want to have a conversation with that about why that is, why there are these pressures that cause people to show up in inauthentic ways. And I wanted to just presence first how we come here to planet Earth whole, how we come here born into our original nature, our true self, our authentic presence, our essence, who we were here to be. And then somewhere along the line, we get wounded. We experience programming and we experience conditioning that takes us out of that original nature, that takes us out of our true self, that takes us out of our authenticity. And for those of us who are aware seekers, and we've been seeking all of our life. We've been, some people call it truth seekers. I like to also say aware seekers. And we've been seeking all of our lives. And we've had this inner knowing that the way that we experience the world and who we be, there often felt there was this conflict. And we also start to understand that there is something out play in the outer world that we are trying to understand and make sense of. And what tends to happen along the way is we start to develop these parts that are wanting to keep that precious inner child safe. They want to keep our original true self safe. They want to protect our authentic presence and essence. And these parts can start to show up in ways that are self-sabotaging. These parts can start to show up in ways that are not authentic. These parts can start to show up in ways that are not fully the full embodiment of all of who we are. And then we find ourselves in these patterns and in these behaviors that are performative or trying to get validation, or trying to be liked, or trying to be seen, or trying to be heard, or trying not to be rejected, or trying not to be abandoned, or trying to make this person choose you, or trying to make the man propose to you. Whatever the reason is, there's so many different reasons. Trying to get the clients now that we're in this tech era, we're in the AI era, we're in this digital marketing era. I have a whole story I want to share here in a moment about my experience with this too, by the way. So stay tuned. I'll share that here in a moment. But we have these parts at play that are looking to be liked, looking to be seen and validated and loved, and trying to avoid rejection and trying to avoid abandonment and trying to avoid pain. And over time, you can start to show up in a way that is not fully you, fully who you are, and then wonder why you're not having certain experiences, wondering why am I really not feeling fully seen in my relationship? Or why am I not attracting the type of partner that I really want deep down in my heart of hearts and in my soul? Or why am I not feeling completely in love with my work and feeling as if something is missing? Or why am I feeling as if I sound more like them than like me? And so it's not until we have this light bulb moment where we start asking ourselves these questions, and then we start to notice, okay, the math is not mathing, something's not right here. And what do I need to do, or what do I need to look at, or what do I need to consider so that I'm experiencing what I desire, whether it's the intimacy or the impact or the pleasure or the prosperity or the peace or whatever it is, and start to close that gap of where we are recognizing we are, but actually getting to where it is we want to be. And unfortunately, if we don't do that deeper inner growth work of closing that gap and living more in congruence and harmony with our true self, with our original self, with our authentic essence and presence, over time, we start to attract experiences and people into our life that are mirroring back to us not our true self, not our original nature, not our authentic self, but are mirroring back to us those parts and those patterns that are creating the very thing we say we do not want. For some, that's an ouch moment because, people don't want to hear that right now. People don't want to hear that right now. And it can sting, it can hurt, it can be uncomfortable. But this is where we get to do what I call drink the truth serum and allow the medicine in. Allow the message in to speak to our heart and soul to create even more awakening, more awareness within ourselves, because that is a pathway to self-actualization in life, love, and leadership. But when we allow ourselves to stay trapped in these patterns that are causing us to not feel seen in relationships or not experience deeper intimacy or not creating greater impact or not showing up in the fullness of who we are, the consequences often that are mirrored back to us, that right there can cause you to create more of this sabotaging pattern that is going to give you more of what you do not want. And the consequences often, I like to use this analogy. There was a season where I taught really heavily about narcissistic abuse, and I taught really heavily about self-love for sensitives and empathic souls. Some of y'all may remember that. And what I used to tell people who are coming into this work was that those who are narcissistic and those who are highly codependent, sensitive, empathic souls, they're on the same spectrum. They're on the same spectrum. They're mirrors to each other. They're mirroring each other's wounds. They're mirroring each other's patterns. They're mirroring each other's sabotaging ways. It's one of the biggest mirrors. And the biggest trap in those dynamics is the blame and shame game that can happen, where you start looking like, oh, well, they're a narcissist and da 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 da. And you can get so engulfed into that where you're becoming others focused and looking at what they're doing or what they're not doing, and taking the attention off of doing what I call check and correct thyself, of what was happening within you that then caused this experience to show up in your life. And the consequence of that dynamic can be very detrimental. Very detrimental. It can break down your self-trust. It can break down your confidence. It can break down your voice, your authentic self-expression. Authenticity is lost in those dynamics. And so I bring that up as an example because it's the most extreme case, I believe, that I can think of to come up with about the consequences that can be mirrored back to us when we're not being fully who we are, not being fully authentic. And it's one of the consequences that so many people grapple with and struggle with when they've found themselves caught up in those dynamics, because it can be a slippery slope of becoming so others focused of what did they do and why did they do it, and then going down the rabbit holes of trying to understand narcissism. I get it, been there, done that. Okay, I learned about this stuff 2 decades ago before it was even popular. Okay, I had this awareness when I was in my early 20s and my son was a baby. And I went to a campus counselor trying to understand why the dynamics between myself and his father at the time mirrored the dynamics that I saw growing up in my home between my dad and my mom. And I'm thinking to myself, hold on, this doesn't seem right. And at the time, I did not know that I was 95% unconscious and 5% conscious. I had no awareness of this stuff. I did not know that I was recreating my childhood unconsciously. And when I learned this, mind you, this, I'm probably 20, 21 years old at the time. This internet stuff and Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and all that stuff was not a big thing back then. I don't even know if it existed. Well, yeah, it existed back then because Facebook. See, I came into the scene when you had to have a college email to have a Facebook account. How many of y'all remember that? That's when I came into the scene, okay? And back then, no one was talking about trauma work. No one was talking about codependence and narcissists. No one was talking about inner work. Nobody was talking about any of this stuff. So when I started learning about this and I started talking about it, people thought I was crazy. This is, over 20 years ago. People are looking at me like, what is she talking about? I'm talking about trauma bonds and I'm talking about narcissists and codependent. No one knew what I was talking about. They thought I was speaking in a foreign language. And so all of that to say, for me, learning that information at that time in that season of my life, when I had this baby and I'm in college completing my undergrad, and I'm noticing that I consciously thought I was choosing better than what I saw growing up, yet 95% of my unconsciousness still chose for me and overrode that 5% consciousness. I had no clue about any of this stuff. And that was such a huge awakening for me in my journey. That was when my own personal self-love journey began. Because then I started to realize, hold on. So you're meaning to tell me that a pattern that I was programmed and conditioned and wounded to be is what created this reality. So then what do I need to do to create the reality that I actually want to experience inside of my life and my relationships at that time? Eventually it snowballed into leadership, and I'll talk about that here in a moment. And it was during that time where I realized that this spectrum that we can find ourselves in, going back to the example of narcissistic people and codependent, sensitive, empathic people, that there's a sacred middle. There's a harmony that gets to happen where you come back home to self, both the narcissistic person and the codependent person coming back into sacred harmony within the self, finding sovereignty within the self, having a sense of self-worth and worthiness and wholeness with your true original nature and self. So when I started learning about this stuff 2 decades ago, it blew my mind, and that took me to a beautiful and interesting journey in my love life. And eventually I manifested the Mister, and God brought the Mister into my life, and many people know that story. But then something happened in my leadership that I wasn't even anticipating, that I wasn't even forecasting. And at some point, I went from being fully all of me, authentic, showing up, creating incredible impact in the world. I mean, like I shared, I started sharing trauma work, and I was a huge activist in the Black community for a long time before any of this internet stuff. People just post to show up, to just look like they're doing something. Okay, you got all these internet activists out here, and they haven't been in the real streets, in the real offices, in the real organizations doing the real work. I was one of those. And those who know me from back then know that. They can vouch to say, yeah, she's the real deal. She's been out and did the work. And then I started doing trauma work and hosting workshops, and then I started talking about being your authentic self, and I started talking about self-love, and all these different topics that I personally enjoyed learning about and embodying and bringing it forward. Before I even came online, I was doing this stuff in person. And I had started to build tremendous momentum, where I started to attract opportunities into my experience that I did not pitch for, the type of opportunities that people pray for and pitch for. They were just coming to me simply because I was just being so fully me, so authentic, so real, so just, this is what you see is what you get. it became so magnetic that I attracted being on the front cover of a magazine. I attracted being on the same stage with an A-list Hollywood actor. I attracted being on the same stage with costume designers of Black Panther and some people from the production of Hollywood. And some people may think, well, why are you sharing this? Who cares about Hollywood? I personally feel God put me in that room for a reason, because so many people in Hollywood, there are so many celebrities right now that struggle with being their full, true, original self, their authentic self, and they're caught in those patterns of performance. And I was such a bright light in that room when I spoke in that particular event that I was invited to be a speaker in. And my topic was about authenticity and self-love. Go figure. And these people were coming up to me wanting my information and wanting to know more about the work that I do, because there's something that's going on out there that people don't want to touch, because people love to be entertained. People love the entertainment that they receive because it helps them to bypass their traumas and dramas and their experiences, and a whole other conversation. I'm not going to go down my riff about that. But anyway, I digress. I was attracting so many beautiful opportunities. And then something happened in my work and in my leadership. I came on these internet streets and I decided that I was going to do what I did in person for years and bring it online. And all of my unconscious patterns and parts showed the F up to play. And they were not invited to the party, and they still showed up to play. Okay. And I had a good old hey time with those parts of myself. And somewhere along the way, I'm trying to understand online marketing, online messaging. I'm trying to understand how to articulate the value of the work that I do in such a way that the people I know God has called me to serve find me, waving my flag, my light in the air, being a light tower. So people are like, here I am, I'm here, come find me so we can do this beautiful work together. And in the midst of all that learning, I got lost in the sauce and I started to get out of touch with my own true self, my own sense of self, my own authenticity. And somewhere along the way, I started giving my power away to try to make more money. I started giving my power away to what this person says I should do. I started giving my sovereignty away to don't sound like this, sound like that. Don't say it like this, say it like that. And it created this confusion bubble for me where I started to lose my voice and my authentic self-expression. And you know what happened after that? The same effect that happened when I was being fully me, being all of me, authentic, and I'm attracting all these opportunities, front cover of a magazine, on the same stage with Hollywood A-list actors and having all these opportunities. The opposite happened when I started to allow the 95% unconscious part to come show up, and these parts to come have a party that weren't invited to the party that I didn't even know existed. The opposite happened and things started to slowly dry up and fizzle out. And I started to realize, hold on. I know what success looks like in my business because I've experienced it. I have replaced my 9-to-5 income with my business. And so I knew what that, I already had experienced it. I knew what was possible. I was what the late Bob Proctor called an unconscious competent. I had worked with him when he was still here. And when he started sharing these teachings with me, it blew my mind. And I started to ask myself these questions of, well, how much of this has been conscious and unconscious? And that's when I started going deeper into identity work and belief system work, which is a big part of the work that I do inside of my work also. You know, in my 8-week feminine embodiment program, I go deep into who we be. And I had to go back to the lab and do my own work. I had to drink my own truth serum. I had to drink my own medicine because I realized that I had disconnected from my essence in the name of trying to market a certain way and message a certain way and sound a certain way. And I had to get real with myself and honest with myself and say, Cassandra, but you know what success looks like just from being all of you because you've experienced it. So it's not like I'm creating a fantasy. It's not like I'm trying to bypass doing the work. I actually experienced it. And so it was tangible, it was real. And I had made this decision I was going to come back home to myself and I was going to go back into my own work in the 8-week feminine embodiment work that I do and go back to self mastery. Stop getting trapped in the do, and let's return back to who I be first. And I took time to reflect and contemplate, and I started reflecting on some of my most favorite moments and memories in my life. And they have been when I was my most authentic, true, original self. Not when I was trying to sound like, be like, talk like, perform like anyone but no. You know, I remember when I first met the mister, and the very next day, the day after we met, he wanted to see me. And I told him, you know, I had some stuff going on that morning. At the time, I was a natural hair care specialist. That was my side business from my 9 to 5. And I was a natural hair care specialist, and I had hair to do that morning. It was a Saturday. And I told him that he would have to wait because I had clients whose hair I had to tend to. And he was very persistent, and we got together later that afternoon. And I didn't have on any makeup. My hair was pulled up in a top knot bun, so I didn't even have all of this fabulousness out. I had on workout clothes. I was in a very simple plain Jane look. And that's one of the memories he brings up often when we talk about our courtship. We had a beautiful, beautiful courtship. And I was not trying to contort myself in a way to get him to like me. I was not trying to be somebody that I wasn't to get him to choose me. I wasn't trying to replicate the way that this faux femininity is represented on these internet streets. I was just being me. And that was magnetic. That was attractive. That was captivating. That was alluring. And granted, I do have my diva moments. I do have my fashionista moments. But in that particular moment, who I was being was, I just want to go for a walk in nature. Because that's a part of who I am too. You know, when I thought about my most favorite memories and moments as my authentic self, it was when I was going around my community and I was talking about the importance of trauma work and soul work and our faith and who we are in life and love and leadership. And I was just showing up, pouring my heart out into it. And the opportunities just came, and I didn't even know that that was possible. And I wasn't pitching for it. I didn't even pray for that stuff. It just came. You know, I remember when I was told that they were wanting to feature me on the front cover of a magazine, and I was thinking to myself, what? Me? And I was just being myself. I was just being myself, all of me, fully authentically. I wasn't doing things hoping to get. I wasn't doing things hoping that something was on the other end of it. I was just showing up fully embodied, being led by God, being of service, doing what God had called and created me to do, impacting lives. And then there was a reciprocal exchange that happened, opportunities coming through. When I think about my favorite memories and moments, they've been when I've been my full self, my full true self, my authentic self. Not when I'm trying to perform, not when I'm trying to pretend, not when I'm showing up as a character, not when I'm, you know, right now we live in a time where I see so many people complain and consume and compete and compare themselves against others more than they're creating. And before we can co create our greatest visions and our desires, we have to first understand and know who we are as co creators. And with these internet streets, specifically online, it can turn into this invisible vortex where you start to, oh, what are they doing over there? Oh, let me do this like that. Let me sound like this. Oh, let me write copy like that. I've literally had people copy and paste my words onto their post verbatim, verbatim, word for word. People want the other side of whatever it is. They want the money, they want the client, they want the success, they want the notoriety, they want the accomplishment, they want the achievement, they want the man, they want the ring, they want the wedding, they want the house, they want the vacations. They want it all so damn bad that they'll do anything to have it. And I believe now more than ever, what's going to compete in the marketplace of AI and artificial intelligence and all this superficiality and faux femininity and all this pretending and performance and people showing up online just doing the most is being authentic. And it takes courage to be authentic. You know why it takes courage to be authentic? Because there are parts in you that are afraid of being rejected. There are parts in you that are afraid of being abandoned. There are parts of you that are afraid of not being liked. They're afraid of being disagreed with. They're afraid of not being validated. They're afraid of, what if I keep showing up and I don't get any money? What if I keep showing up for dates and I don't get chosen? What if I keep showing up and people don't clap for me when I speak on stage? Whatever the thing is. But I'm telling you now more than ever, authenticity is what's going to win right now in life, in love, in leadership. And there is something beautiful about authenticity, the uniqueness, the rareness of it, the you being one of a kind. I think about our fingerprint, how God was so intentional when creating us that no fingerprint can be duplicated. Your fingerprint is not on somebody else's body. It only belongs to you. That is the power of our authenticity. But there's so much temptation to just a little bit step over here and play in the realm of artificiality. Just a little bit of temptation to come over here and play in the realm of superficiality. Just a little bit of temptation to come over here and play in the realm of performance and pretense. The temptation is strong. But you have to be embodied in who you are. You have to be embodied in godly power. You have to be embodied as all of you in this season. And this is why I'm so passionate about the work that I do. If you are unable to work with me one-on-one, the first entry point with me moving forward is my 8-week feminine embodiment program. I'm closing all the other containers behind the scenes. Because that right there is the portal to unleashing and unlocking unparalleled personal and professional potential as a woman, lover, and leader. That right there is the portal to being the full embodiment of all of you. So that when you show up in your life, in your love, in your leadership, in your legacy building, you're showing up with such a presence that your mere presence is undeniable. You don't even have to open your mouth. It's palpable. You can feel it. I was journaling this morning about who I was as a little girl before I was wounded, programmed, conditioned out of it. And I wrote a little bit about this on my Facebook post last night when I talked about this term bougie that has been projected onto me in my life. And as a little girl, I had an eye for nice things. I had style that has continuously been cultivated. I would draw pictures with outfits and the way that I wanted to dress because I did not want to look like anyone else. I was so clear on that. I wanted to be me. And I wanted it to be so clear that I was me. I was a starseed who loved to play out in nature and daydream and connect in the heavenly realms with creator. I was such a wonder child. And somewhere along the line, the messaging of too much came in. The messaging of you're selfish came in. The messaging of you're not grateful came in. The messaging of you want too much came in from my father. And I started to dim that part of myself. But it's always been with me and a part of me. And so part of my reclamation of my personal sovereignty was also reclaiming this sophisticated, elegant, stylish woman that had always been there. And to release the fear of people and their projections of, when you see a beautiful woman walk into a room and she's got it going on and she just lights the whole room up, you have one or two potential experiences that can happen. You're either going to have the people who are attracted to her and captivated by her and they want to know who she is. And then you're going to have the moths to a flame, the energy vampires, the ones who like to siphon people's essence. And for a lot of my life, I tried to avoid the latter. I tried to avoid the attacks, the criticism, the envy, the jealousy, the hatred, the backstabbing, the betrayal. And in me trying to avoid that, I also was rejecting the other, the people who actually resonate, the people who actually feel in alignment with that, the people who feel drawn to that, the people who feel connected to that, so that I can co-create community and connections and relationships with those who are drawn to that. But because I was so focused on trying to avoid pain, trying to avoid these moths to a flame, these energy vampires, these people who like to siphon other people's energy and essence because they have disconnected from their true original nature, I didn't realize that I was shutting down a very real part of who I am. And so I also had to reclaim that. That yes, I can be athletic and want to go out in nature and connect with God out in nature, because to me the best way, my church is not in a building. I have two churches out in God's creation and this holy temple, this vessel that I'm dwelling in on my time on planet Earth. But I also have this savvy, fashionista, stylish, sophisticated, elegant woman in me that I had to give myself permission to allow to exist as well. Why am I sharing this? I'm sharing this because there is so much of who you are that you may not have even realized you have not given yourself permission to be the full expression and embodiment of. And it could be because of what I shared. The wounding, the programming, the conditioning you may have experienced from those who weren't in their own power, they weren't in their own sovereignty, they weren't in their own embodiment of their true original nature and true self. And there can create this friction in your co-creations. And you can make the money and still feel like something's missing. You can be in the relationship and still not feel fully seen. You can be out here being seen and visible on these internet streets in your business and your God work and your leadership and feel like you're not really making a true impact. And in my humble opinion, it's because there is a part of you that you have not fully claimed, that you are not fully owning, that you are not fully allowing yourself to be. And my sacred invitation to you is to unleash, to allow all of you to dwell in the land of the living, to allow all of who you be to be relevant in this time, to allow all of who you are to take up space in every room you enter, in every encounter you have. That it doesn't matter if you are around this person or that person, you are being all of you. It doesn't matter if you're on these internet streets or behind the scenes, you're being all of you. Because I believe right now, we are done with the whole, you're one person behind the scenes and you're another person online. That time is done. You can't be hot mess express behind the scenes and then show up online posting all these cute pictures and all this cute messaging and posting about how successful you are, but your relationship is falling apart. That season is over. And I believe God is calling people to clean up house, literally and figuratively. So this is your sacred invitation. There's 2 doors that you can enter to come and do this work with me if you feel called. And the first is, of course, the one-on-one exclusive private mentorship where I customize and tailor your experience according to your vision, desires, and your unique challenges, because I don't do cookie cutter coaching. I do customized, tailored support. And so if that's something you're interested in and you're a spiritual high achieving leader who loves one-on-one mentorship, then you can reach out to me and we can look at how I can support you. If you are not ready for that type of support, or you want to come and dip your toe in the water and see what I'm all about, then my 8-week feminine embodiment program is the next best step. I've been running this program since 2017 or 16, somewhere around there. And it has continued to grow and evolve, and no version is the same. This program has absolutely changed lives. I've had women who were single come into this program and start a celibacy journey. They abstain from sex, and then on the back end, they meet their beloved. I've had women who have taken this program and get out of a bad relationship or out. And when I say bad, I'm not meaning bad in the form of super dysfunctional. Just it wasn't aligned. It wasn't the relationship for them. They get out of it. They come do this work. And then they meet their beloved. God brings their beloved into their life. And 7 months later, they're married. I have had people come into this program and they realize that they weren't fully showing up in the fullness of who they are. They weren't fully self-expressed inside of their leadership and their God work. And they come and take this program and the floodgates open for them. And when I say the floodgates open for them, we're talking about, I know you can't make money claims with FTC, and so I'm not going to share financial results. If that's something you want to know, you can just reach out to me and I can share a recorded video testimonial that I have from my clients that I have had consent to share. So there's that. I have had people who have overcome being camera shy and able to show up in the fullness of who they are inside of their God work on these internet streets. I've had people come into this program and just feel fully themselves and be more magnetic, more confident, more authentic. I could keep going. And so if you want more information about that, then you can reach out and I would be more than happy to share more information about that. We're going to begin in February, mid-February. And so time's a ticking. Okay. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your time. If you know someone who would find value in this conversation, if you would please share this, I would really appreciate this. And if you want to stay really close to me, I have an exclusive email community that I invite you to come and be a part of. You can reach out to me to get the link to join my email community. Sometimes I share stories and newsletters in there that does not make it on these internet streets because I love intimacy. And speaking of intimacy, my 8-week feminine embodiment program, I only allow 8 people in at a time. It's an intimate space. I like to keep it safe, exclusive, curated. I'm not here to do some, mega church stuff right now in my business. I really just want to work with the right people at the right time. So thank you, Powerful Soul, for your presence. Thank you for being here. I love you, and I shall connect with you very soon. Take care now.